You've got a lot to communicate, and if you can just get people to pay attention, you'll delight your customers and sell more wine. But people ignore emails and screen calls. Everyone does read their text messages, but alcohol regulations make compliance a bear. Use RedChirp to cut through the noise. Convert website traffic into reservations and sales with web-to-text chat. Reliably reach members about customizing club orders, declined cards, and delinquent pickups. Exceed your sales goals with customized promotions that make everyone feel like a VIP. Securely collect credit card info 6 times faster. Reduce returns and no-shows with completely automated shipment notifications and reservation reminders, while order attribution automatically connects text to sales so you know what's working. RedChirp is trusted by wineries of all sizes and integrates with your other tools. Get more leads, make more sales, and build stronger relationships with RedChirp.
And let's get started. We are talking about growing your sales in a flat wine market. And it's really apropos that we just followed that interesting presentation, because a lot of what we're talking about today dovetails exactly right off of that. Obviously, there's some changes going on in the marketplace, and we all need to continue to meet our managers and our company and our shareholders' growth goals. So how are we supposed to do that with the economic and the consumer situation at the moment? So that's what our topic is today. I am Susan DeMatei. I own a marketing agency called WineGlass Marketing. We started in 2011 trying to help wineries move online and look at their different sales channels. We have about 30 employees and 60 clients, and we work in D2C, but we also work in 3-tier, and we do have quite a few B2B clients. I have really cool panelists with me today. So I have Nadia Kinkade, who's been a longtime friend and a brilliant marketer, and she's the director of DDC at Niente. And then Leah Varvaro, she is working for an extremely cool company called Vintners, and she does a lot of very interesting product development. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the overall concept of how to start thinking about your marketing in this situation we're in right now. And then they're going to come in and they're going to give you some real life case studies. So let's agree that the entire wine industry has really been tailored for baby boomers. Baby boomers turned 21 in 1967, I think. And that's when they started. And then in 1991, we had, that you mentioned earlier, the huge growth we had in the 90s. Most of that came out of the French Paradox 60 Minutes episode that came out. And baby boomers said, great, it's good for me. You know, I can jump on and do this. There's a lot of things that go into this particular generation that you can really see tailored in the way we do business now. So for the first thing is, boomers obviously were born after the Second World War. There's a lot of turmoil in the 50s and 60s and 70s. They grew up with a great sense of wanting to have balance and responsibility. They want things to make sense. They want to make the responsible decision, and they want to have data to back that up. This is the generation that has Consumer Reports and, 6 car magazines that do the ratings, and, they're very much into researching and the process of researching, going through all of the motions and all the research in order to get something and make a responsible decision, and then having either data sheets like spec sheets in wine or awards to back up that decision that you made a responsible decision. And that's a really strong drive within this particular generation. The other thing about them is their goal, their parents grew up in the Depression, so their goal is to amass a collection of things. That shows that you've arrived, is when you have whoever has the most toys wins, right? So the idea of collecting things and getting in the know, and again, that process of, I know a guy who can show me this, or I have connections, I can get you in here. It's exclusive, but I've been on their list for 3 years, so I have a bigger allocation. All of these things, and the way, again, we've built the wine industry, have really been out of what boomers treasure. They also tend to, when they find something like that, they keep it to themselves because, again, it's that exclusivity and that feeling that I know this and I can, I'll share it with you, but you got to kind of come with me, like, because I'm the contact. Those types of things are sort of ingrained in, this is, again, my idea of success. They tend to look for homogeneous groups. So I want to be in a group of people that are like myself because then I belong. And you can see that I've arrived because I aspire to be these people, so therefore, I'm now one of them. So in looking at all of these things and knowing really, if you think about it, it's been in the 90s since we started doing hospitality and D2C, so our whole model of how we sell D2C and through hospitality, through even e-commerce and everything that's come up in this century, it's all based on these values. And that would be fine, except we know what's happening right now. We have, and you can all feel better if you're confused by what's going on right now, because this is the biggest generational shift that we've ever had, ever in the history of people. Every 20, 25 years is a different generation. The boomers we thought were going to be the biggest generation yet, and they were 75 million. I happen to be a Gen X. Everybody just skips over us because we hate everything. We don't believe in anything. We think everybody's lying, and all we want to do is listen to Pearl Jam. So, and we're also a very small generation. Then you have millennials, and millennials are just as big as boomers. So you've got this huge, huge group of people that are now 40. And right after that, you have Gen Z. And Gen Z, this was actually done with the last census data. If you updated that to now, Gen Z is now over both boomers. I think it's like 82 million. So we have two massive generations coming right up behind the boomers and the Gen Xers. So it's easy to say, well, kids these days, they don't understand things. But it's not really about age. What it's about is technology. Since about 1910, there has been a massive shift in lifestyle, education, healthcare, and communications, all because of some technology breakthroughs in how we're using things now. In 1970, a chip that could do 1,000 transistors cost over $1,000. Today, it costs 2 cents. What that means is that there's massive processing power that's available to pretty much anybody, in a small scale, for very inexpensively. 90% of all of the data in the history of the world has been created in the past 2 years. That's how fast things are moving and how much people are getting on board and doing this. So if you think about it, really what we're dividing here is people that grew up with technology and people who didn't, and how that has shaped their view of the world. So let's talk about millennials and Gen Z. We can merge them together and call them zillennials for the rest of the presentation. So post-technology, think about process. Again, I'm Gen X. I had a computer in college, but I did not in high school. And when I had to do a book report, I had to remember to ask my mom for bus money, remember to take the right bus after school, get off at the library, remember my library card, go into the library and use the Dewey Decimal System. I had to do my research on cards. I might have even used the Encyclopedia Britannica. I would have then put the books back, taken my cards, taken the bus home, written out my paper by hand, and then asked my mom if I could borrow the typewriter and type it out for class. Compare that process to somebody doing a paper today. It's so much more condensed. So the ramification of this is the idea of process, this long thing that goes through how we make our wine, and let me take you through this huge tour. They don't care. It's not a concept to them to really value that. Boomers loved the act of going through and being able to show, like, I really understand, step A, step B, step C. This is not something that resonates with this audience. Moreover, they get kind of bored and they don't like it. So they tend to do things with icons and images and things that are much more readily available to explain the concept in as few words as possible. So that's one huge thing to think about when you're realizing, you've got 150 million new consumers coming towards you, that this is something that they value. Second thing, I honestly do not think I would make it now if I was a kid. I don't think I could grow up in high school on social media. I just don't think I could handle it. Can you imagine, for those of you who didn't, what it is like to have every single thing you do be out there and commented on by everybody as a kid? Like, that's a huge psyche thing that they bring with them. So the byproducts of this, they expect you to know them because their whole lives, everybody's known every little detail about them. So when they're a consumer or they're a client of yours or a customer, club member, what have you, you better know them because that's just kind of like the expected level. Second thing is a thick skin doesn't cover it. They are fearless. They will rake you over the coals on Yelp because that's what they're used to. They're used to somebody ripping them apart because they didn't have the right kind of genes or something. They also come to any transaction with their whole selves. And this goes back to why a CRM or collecting data is so important. I see this the most when I have status meetings with my team. It's kind of funny. So those of us that are like 45 and older, we will say, I've got to do this and this and this today, and then we'll move on. And you go to like the 25-year-olds and they're like, well, I got to get gas in my car. So I think I might be, I'll go to this meeting, but then I'm going to go do this. And, my email's kind of backed up right now, but I got this other thing I got to, and it's like everything they need to do that day. They don't really separate between like, this is my work persona and this is my personal. It's all together. That's another important distinction to know when you're dealing with customers. And then the obvious one is they do not care about critics. They don't care about scores. They do care about their peer reviews and what people are saying online, but they're pretty impervious to external forces telling them and validating this is the right thing. They are much more focused on their internal, and they've had to grow up this way. Imagine being in high school with this. If you didn't have an internal compass, and you're like, I'm not going to pay attention to that comment because that guy's an idiot, that you would probably not make it out of high school. So they have a very, very strong internal compass of what works for them and what they believe in, and that's what they want to align themselves with. Last big point of differentiation. I mentioned that boomers have this tendency to want to have an exclusive experience and be the only one. It's completely the opposite with generations that have grown up with technology. Their first instinct is, I want to share it. Whenever they find something out, here's how to get this coupon. Here's how to do this. Like, it's very, very opposite. So all of these programs we have where you need a secret passcode to get into here and only this wine is available, it just frustrates them. Conversely, what's luxury to maybe our generations were like, the velvet rope and you had to wait in line and you had to know the bouncer in order to get in and all that. That was our version of luxury, Their version of luxury is DoorDash. You know, I can, by the time I get home from work, I can have a hot meal from my favorite restaurant there. That's luxury. That's me treating myself. So as easy as it could possibly be is their idea of luxury, not exclusive and hard to get. They just don't even, that's not luxury to them. What this has created is a whole different resulting behaviors that we better start to incorporate. 75% of all buy now, pay later users are millennials. The buy now, pick up in store, also huge from them. Boomers used to buy, or boomers and Gen Xers buy on desktop, or they buy in person, or they buy on the phone. This group buys on apps, and I'm sorry, I meant phone, and then and on mobile. So they have different channels that they buy from. They also turn all of the stereotypes on end. I pulled up this picture because, first of all, I love Post Malone, but who doesn't? But he has a wine brand that's rosé, which is kind of weird in of itself. So you have this guy with tattoos on his face, sitting in a suit, drinking rosé. I don't know why there's papers all over. But I believe he has ice in his glass, and right under this, if you scroll down on the website, it was all the cocktail recipes he likes to serve his rosé in. I mean, think about that. Like, as a traditional boomer, like showing your wine in a glass with ice with a guy with tattoos and making a sangria, like your winemaker would die. But yet this is what, they want to show things that are, almost anti-culture, counterculture. They don't care about the stereotypes. They also evaluate the brands and looking at those intrinsic values instead of the products. So the product sheet's not as important. Moreover, one of the biggest problems we have as an industry, they touched on earlier, diversity. So where boomers and Gen Xers tend to look for homogeneous groups, millennials and Gen Z tend to look for diversity, and not only that, but demand it. And if they don't see it, they're not comfortable with you. I believe this is the same chart that they showed there. The most important thing here is to see is like that V in the middle. So basically that key buying time of 30s and 40s is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's the point they made earlier, but the point I'm going to make here is it looks like 45% of wine drinkers are now over the age of 40, and 55% are now under the age of 40. And based on what I just said, those are two really different audiences. So if you're not starting to bifurcate your marketing and your targeting, you really need to, as soon as possible, and start to look at two different marketing plans for two different groups. So the title of this section was How Do You Grow Your Wine and Wine Sales in a Flat Market? That's how you have to do it, is you have to start looking at this next generation. But you can't walk away from the boomers that that have been keeping us afloat for an industry for 30 years. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to a couple people who figured out how, and we're going to start with Leah, and she's going to start talking about products that her company has developed to attract this particular audience.
Thanks, Susan. So when you think about how complex, consumer segmentation is, and how there are so many different ways to break down even the younger generations, you've got to find some foundation for how you look at things. So for us, we've really given ourselves the value and purpose and some sort of what's our impact, what's the reason behind the brand. So when we think, from our larger, kind of more established brands like Line 39, with programs like our Plate It Forward campaign that are donating back into the community, is just something that's a little bit more stable and existing. And then when we go into kind of our younger brands with Line 30 or Rabble, we can get a little bit more edgy with it. So using that to kind of walk through how we're connecting with this Zillennial, as we're calling it, generation. So this is the older Gen Z and younger millennials, because even within the millennial space, it's very complex, but it's still product first. They want delicious, they want approachable, easy to drink wines, and I think that's still the foundation of everything that we're doing for this consumer, is that it's a product that they want, and the difference is how we're talking about it. They want it to feel like it's been made for them. So first off, it's even how we say our tasting notes. The wine's bright, zippy, crushable, really simplifying our messaging. They don't want a long, kind of overdone tasting notes. And then if we say that the brand is environmentally driven, then we've got to, show our receipts. How are we backing that up? By donating to 1% for the planet, by being a B Corp company. And then we bring that all together with storytelling in more of a visual way. It's less words, but more graphics. So through the label with the AR, really bringing the story of Mother Nature and how we cannot command Mother Nature through the label design and the AR. And that's really what's the main driver telling the story. There's not long copy, there's not paragraphs and complex stories. It's all very visual and very engaging. But the most important thing beyond just the label and the packaging is how we're connecting with our consumers. So an integrated marketing approach is key. We've got to have multiple touch points with them, from digital to experiential, and even how we're talking to them in store. So this is just an example. This is our program that we just did for Earth Month in April called Listen to Your Mother. So it started off with a social media campaign. We actually partnered with 50 influencers through this platform called Coley. And what it did is allowed us to get user-generated content. So everything that we have, a lot of what we have on social media is created by our customers and by fans and influencers out there. And really just giving them a platform and them a voice and something to engage with the wines. We've got a quick video of...
It's Earth Month, and you know what that means.
You know that 46% of Earth's forests are already gone?
Apple does everything in their power to protect the planet.
Varvaro Wines makes delicious, crushable wines in collaboration with Mother Nature.
Their model is to listen to her, obey her, and protect her.
Let's show Mother Nature some love and make a difference.
Join me by going to ravelwine.com to sign the pledge or by buying a bottle.
And they will donate a percentage of sales to protect our environment.
We're encouraging you to help us donate 50,000 trees this month.
I pledge.
I pledge.
I pledge to listen to my mother.
So by giving the influencers just something basic beyond just the wine and talking about the food and wine experience, it really was much more enriching content. We had about 400,000 impressions over the month of April with the campaign, and thousands of engagements through these different influencers that have, anywhere from 5,000 to 500,000 followers through TikTok and Instagram. But a platform like Coley that's, connecting you holistically with the with the influencers and having them generate the content in the fun, engaging way is something that we could even use ongoing beyond just the 1 month campaign. And then from the experiential perspective, you've got to have, liquid to lips is one of our most important assets. And when you've got a brand that's just out in 3-tier, having fun and unique ways for customers to try your product. So from an on-premise takeover perspective, it can be as simple and complex as you want to make it. So this was kind of one of our bigger examples down in Miami with the House of Graffiti. Working with Eventbrite, we had about 600 guests come through and interact with the brand on different levels, from tasting and just creating an overall vibe for the brand that was, a little bit more unique, a little bit more edgy and cool, that, brought through the environmental aspects and the, socially good aspects of the brand, but not making that the focal point. You're really just wanting the brand to, fit in with their culture and feel cool and have a really cool vibe. So this is just kind of an overview of what that looks like. And, as we look into a bunch of our different focus markets and doing this at a bunch of different scales, whether, it's a huge, over-the-top event or even, just the general tools. It's a really fun way to engage. And then lastly, as we think about expanding on the AR experience and tying that into a retail engagement. So going beyond the label and actually having an AR that comes to life within the store. So this is the Fury or Flourish. Basically, you scan a QR code, and the AR experience comes to life just in the middle of the store, and consumers are asked, do you want the tree to basically burn or to grow? But the upside is no matter what you pick, the app's going to do what it wants because you cannot command Mother Nature. And then the wine kind of comes out of either the tree or out of the flames. And then it kind of gives consumers the opportunity to interact further, to learn more about the wine that they have in their hand, to learn more about other wine on the shelf, and then also to join the mailing list and kind of become part of a mob, an extra kind of step of donating. And they say about if you can get the consumer to pick the bottle off the shelf, they're 70% more likely to, add it into their basket. So just that extra bit of engagement and another visual way to tell the story. Yep. Thank you.
So I wanted to have Nadia here. Thank you very much. I would expect nothing less, though, on the super cool brands that you have. What surprised me was you kind of can't get any more OG than Niente, as far as, ingrained, hospitality, been doing it the same way for a long time. So the sort of sleeper here is Nadia and what she's doing over at Niente.
Thank you, Susan. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So when I started at Niente 5 years ago, I came into a company with wonderful established brands, beautiful properties, an incredible club, but an incredible club with a significant attrition problem. And I started where most people start, with the data, wanted to see where they were dropping off in their journey, and the whys. So looking at the cancellation reasons, we had a really great data set there. So I could understand, when and why. But my interest really was with the people who hadn't quit yet. And so I started with a survey. Now, I think surveys in general are one of the best and most underutilized tools that we have at our disposal in DTC, or in general. Instead of wondering what you can do, just ask them. They're this huge group of people that are already engaged with you, and they're more than happy to share and overshare everything that you want. So I asked, how long they had been members, because I wanted to be able to separate out the answers. And I asked them where they joined, when they, what drove them to join. And looking at our benefits now, how are they ranking them? How are we doing? I asked them what other clubs they're in, because most members are a part of other clubs. I know we don't like to think about that, but they do. And I asked them how we compared. I asked how we could do better about events, and I asked them to rank lots of different things, and finally how likely they were to recommend us to their friends. So I could get a good NPS score, have a baseline for how we were doing, and anything that we would implement for future years. And I also left that first year lots of open comment sections, and they shared a lot of valuable feedback. I read every single thing, which took me forever. But at the end of it, I had a really clear picture of what we were doing well, what they appreciated, and areas where I really needed to put my focus. So I was able to make some adjustments to our basic operations, to loosen some of the procedures that we had had in place before that were a little rigid, and just implement some other best practices. Now, then I combined what I had learned from the survey and what I had learned from the data to determine how I wanted to set up the loyalty program. And I tiered it based on their drop-off points, so 2 years, 5 years, and 10 years. And so they can get increasing benefits. This has also helped with, one of the things that came out was, we had all these great benefits and you've taken them away as you've grown. You've grown and you've changed. Okay, well, you can have those benefits back because you're this, high of a member. And now that's an aspirational level for our other members. Now, we have, obviously, the traditional clubs that everyone is accustomed to, various number of bottles, different wines, and everything just shipped directly to their door with your typical complimentary experiences and events. The demographics of our clubs, by and large, follow what you see in the market, whether it's 3-tier or DTC, the California leading, and then the same big states. Now, in 2020, when everything changed, we launched the hosted at home subscription model. I'd always wanted to do that, but we didn't have the technology to do so. But in 2020, we didn't have the opportunity to wait any longer. We needed to be able to provide the same hospitality and value to our members that we weren't able to do in person. And so we started this program, 2 to 3 bottles every month, $200. That includes shipping. They also get a virtual experience every month. Those are the benefits. There's no benefits in the winery. There's no other benefits for events. It's strictly built into their pricing. Now, as things have opened up, we have seen a shift where the traditional clubs follow the traditional purchase regions. When you're talking hosted at home, we definitely have a much higher percentage of people in the Midwest and on the East Coast. While their AOV is lower, their LTV is the same, pretty much, as our traditional clubs. What also has been interesting is that our traditional club members have been using this as a gift, whether it's for loved ones or corporate, and they'll gift it, 2 to 6 month subscription, which is great. It's giving our wine to more people, and they're able to join in the virtual experience together and share a glass, even if they are further away physically. Now, obviously, having a lot of members, I'm sure anyone that, whose club has grown feels the pressure of the different ways that we need to communicate. All of us here have, inboxes. I mean, mine's just a disaster. How do you get their attention? How do you communicate to a varied group of people? This is some of the way that we have worked on that is we've done events around the country that, again, came from the survey. They wanted to see luxury dinners, so we added more. They can have a very expensive, luxurious meal with Beth Nickel at Niente, or they can come for happy hour. And obviously the price points are very different. Adding in harvest experiences, having a club lounge. One of the big things we heard is, I've had your tour so many times I could give it myself. I just want to drink the wine. Like, okay, come drink the wine and enjoy the property. Around the country, bringing Niente out in the market to, various key areas of the country and doing winemaker dinners before them. Doing a baseball event in Chicago. A couple of us just got back from that. And it was fun. It's a much younger crowd. And we had a much older crowd at the dinner the night before. And virtual experiences, whether it's hosted at home or at the wineries, has also been key to keep the people that, maybe they have young families, or let's just face it, Napa is more expensive to come visit. So, they're able to still feel like they're getting a benefit and a connection to you without being in person. Now, communication and channel preference, we chose to illustrate that with cutting edge technology. We added in, for those of you the longest text message ever written. So what we've done, we started in 2020, we added in Help Scout, which helped us survive having a shared inbox and not a shared workspace. Then more recently, we've added in RedChirp as a way to help us. I didn't know that ad was going to be there. I'm not a paid sponsor. But we added in RedChirp to help us with, our retention. It's been a really great way to reach members that were unreachable via phone and email. I would totally be one of those. I would rather die than pick up my phone. We've been able to remind them to, hey, your shipment's coming. And then it's like, oh yeah, I moved states. Here's my new address. Update their information. And it's a lot easier than going through a clunky website, especially one like ours. And it's also become a fantastic sales tool where we can look at analytics and we can go into really hyper-focus our attention. Okay, they've purchased this wine, but not this vintage. Here's the text about it. You've purchased this wine, we're down to our last bottles. Do you want some? Giving them keywords that they can just text back and say, or in the club, they can say, ship it if they're normally a will call member. Great, we'll ship your wine. You want a case of our Pinot Noir? Great, text back Pinot and a case is on the way. We've had such incredible positive feedback from them, and it's just been really eye-opening. They're much friendlier, for sure, much more responsive. They're we joke that they're our little besties. They're sending us all these emojis, and they're just happy. And it's not necessarily just age, and we also include a link in them, and people buy just online too. They don't text back, but it reminds them, oh yeah, I wanted to buy that. And I can't emphasize enough that ability to hyper-target and really make them know, we understand who you are, and that's why we're sending you this. We're not going to bug you about something you don't care about. Now, we do have these big established properties and brands, and it's a very different experience. They're seated, and they are longer, and we can only host so many people, right? We recently bought the old Provenance building. We're in the business. We just got our permit a couple days ago, so this is very exciting. This will be opening next year, and this is a really great opportunity both for retention and for acquisition, because we can only host so many people at the wineries, and this will be a lot easier for people to come up for their same-day appointments. We are going to have a variety of experiences with the more casual outside, and as you get closer into the inside of the property, you get more and more formal and more. We'll have everything from, you can buy a bottle, sit outside with your dog and your kids, which you definitely can't do at Niente or Nickel and Nickel, to learning how to blend when you go further in. And we're hoping that this really helps meet our customers where they are. We've done that with the shipments, we've done that with the communication. Now we're doing it with the experiences. Let them self-select, regardless of age, into what they're interested in doing and experience us in that way.
Thank you. So we have two very different views here. We have somebody who starts from the ground up and develops different products to meet this audience, but also somebody who has tailored their brand to meet different audiences as well. It all starts from data, It all starts from collection of data. I actually had a client the other day reject a proposal for that, saying they didn't want to be invasive and bother them. And that's not how you need to proceed. You need to understand your target and then and start brainstorming, get out of your comfort zone. Don't do things like you've always done in the past, and think about new ways you can reach people. We do have some questions. Yes, I am married. I'm sorry. But I am interviewing for sugar daddies, if anybody... Leah, for you, what methods did you use to evaluate awareness and success for your celebrity or your influencer programs?
Yeah, I think one of the bigger pieces of this is that you've got to be super targeted. So when we're looking at this integrated approach with social, with experiential, with retail, we're activating it in select markets, so we can really go deep and make sure we're penetrating those markets. But from a digital perspective, engagements are most important. You want to see that not only is the consumer seeing it, that they're also interacting with it. And how that's coming through in market, obviously it's not as straightforward, but we're looking at velocity, and velocity change from before, during, and after the program is really what's driving if we've truly been successful in that market.
So specifically, likes, follows, comments,
Yes.
And then more generically, pull through the market. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to merge the next two questions. These are for you, Nadia. Question about how to take an existing brand or an existing product and target it. Did you do anything differently to your brand or your products to reach this new audience, or did you just look at different communications channels and activities for them?
So, sorry. We've predominantly have not changed our product. Certainly, I mean, one of the things, if you try Niente Chardonnay from the 90s and you try it today, it's the same house style. What we did do is with the En Route Winery, we added a rosé with Belly Union. As we anticipate, getting closer to rolling out that new home, we have a rosé and a Sauvignon Blanc. We will be creating new wines there that kind of break that model of the traditional, Farniente style. And we'll be having blends, white blends and red blends, and a various price points so that it can attract a range of consumers and interests.
Okay. I think those are great examples. You didn't change the price point, you didn't change the product, didn't alter the brand, do a new logo, anything. You just came up with different programs. And the way you talk to them and the way you explain to them, like the example that Leah gave with the tasting notes, was different. But there's no reason you can't take an existing product or an existing brand and reach this audience. You don't have to, I like the Frank Sinatra, who doesn't love Frank? But, I don't think you do have to change that much.
One thing, can I add one thing
Please.
that I forgot? When we're talking, a lot of this has been focused on, the younger generations, but I think we also need to be careful to respect the boomers as they retire and give them a nice, off-ramp, whether that is a reduced, shipment retention club, which is what we do, or, another thing that the team has started doing is they've been letting people transfer their memberships to their children. And what a nice way to keep that there, getting to retain those incredible benefits that someone's reached after 10 years and, continue it on.
You were also saying, when we were talking about this session, one of the biggest drivers of your subscription club is your traditional club giving the subscription club as gifts.
Yeah.
So I think the real interesting thing about what she's done over there is a club traditionally is our loyal model, right? Like once you've got them in the door, you've got them through the tastings, this is your loyalist, and you rate them based on attrition and how long they've spent in their lifetime value. When you start looking at subscription clubs, it's actually at the top of the funnel. that's where, I mean, the innate nature of millennials and Gen Z is they like to try things. And they're not going to maybe stay in a club as long, you know, but they want to try different things. So why not do a 3-month, 6-month trial club or subscription? Start to think of it as an acquisition vehicle. And I also love the idea of not only start thinking about how you're going to onboard this new way of thinking, these new technology relevant generations, but how when the 60, 70-year-olds start to get off and lower their consumption, how can you still retain them? How can you make it easy for them to still have a relationship with the brand? As you call it, an off-ramp, which I love that idea. We got 42 seconds left. Oh my God. And then one of us dies. There's so many questions. We'll have to respond to some of these, but Leah, does AR succeed in engaging Zillennials with the package, or do you gain any data back from the engagement to help you with placement, or I'm thinking anything else in the 3-tier?
Yeah, we definitely have really great engagement on the AR. I think for us, probably the biggest piece off of that would be email signups. And just getting some general like location-based data to help us drive where we're doing our targeted integrated campaigns. And yeah, we'll obviously use that as part of selling tools within retail if we've got a high rate of consumer engagement in their area.
Question about the survey, and that this will be our last one, I think. I'm going to merge some of these together. What is your response rate on the club, and what survey platform did you use?
So I use SurveyMonkey, and we're around a 20% engagement, 20 to 30.
And do you ever do surveys or on non-members for things like this?
No, but that's what we're doing this year.
Ooh, all right. Things
Watch
to look
this
for.
space.
Things to look for. I think I got all the big ones. What we'll do is we'll take a moment and we'll answer these in the chat. I think we're allowed to do that. Can we write back? Does anybody know? We'll figure it out.
Or we can just go out there.
Yeah, we can just go out there. But thank you very much.